So what should we call this? The Valorant killer? Hey guys, Nightfall here, and today is a little different sort of video in that I wanted to talk about something other than XDefiant. Not because I didn't have tons more XDefiant content to make, but because there's a new game that is now in beta playtesting that you can join in on. I got access to it late last night and I wanted to give my honest opinion and review on it. And the real question is it worth all the hype? Well, after playing for a few hours, here's my thoughts on it. Let's start off with the base game itself and what you see when you load in. The UI can be very overwhelming, and that seems to be a common thing with games nowadays. There is a lot of stuff, but it's a lot of unnecessary stuff. A lot of unnecessary visuals just distracting you from where you need to go and what you need to be doing. It's nice to look at, but in my opinion, it's just a bit too much. So the first thing I do with any game that I play is I adjust some settings, and it's worth noting that this game does have ray tracing, and it also has some nice options for you to turn it off and on, as well as some sub options. I left all that stuff on while turning other visuals down like motion blur and stuff like that, similar to how I would with any other game that I play to maximize FPS. But also this time I left the ray tracing on just to give it a more cinematic feel. I don't get to do that much with games these days where everything's about pumping out high FPS, and any small change to the better visuals will decrease that number significantly. So with all that on, I was able to get around 200 FPS, so +1 for having some custom options with ray tracing and all that fun stuff. It does seem pretty well optimized for what it is, because there is a lot of stuff going on at once. The sensitivity settings are a bit weird, mainly the dead zone setting to 0 feels like it's crazy sensitive. Setting it to 0 almost feels like if other games had a -1 setting, but then moving it up 1 tick makes it feel like it should be at 0. Small gripe, easy workaround, but just felt like I'd throw that in there. So let's talk game modes. The main game mode is called Shard Clash. Long story short, it's your typical 5v5 bomb style game mode that can be found in other games like Counter-Strike and Valorant. But the twist, or rather gimmick here, is that there's these things called shard cards that shake up the way each round plays out. Some cards give more health, some cards give more ammo, some cards make the round shorter, some cards give you 2 bombs to plant or even eliminate a bomb site altogether. There's obviously more cards, but those are some of the more notable ones that I've seen while playing. And also something interesting that I do like about this game mode is that there's no buying your weapons or abilities. They're simply there. And if you die with one of the weapons, you just can't use that weapon anymore unless someone else has it still available and you ask for it and they give you theirs. Pretty cool concept. I like the way that shakes up the game a little bit, so you can't just have the same people holding the same angles with the same sniper rifle, and it makes it just kind of unplayable. But like I said, that's the main game mode, but that's not all. They have other game modes as well, including one that's set to release in a couple days at the time of making this video, and it seems very interesting, and I wouldn't mind something like that coming to XDefiant, but we'll talk about that in just a second. The first game mode they have outside of the main game mode called Shard Clash is Team Deathmatch. Typical team deathmatch, no need for an explanation. I think we all know what a TDM game mode looks like and what the objective is. Next is a mode called Capture the Core, which in my best explanation is a variation of Capture the Flag. And the difference here is that instead of aiming to capture the opposing team's flag, your goal is to pick up these cores that are spread around the map and bring them back to your base and collect the most points to win. So maybe it's more like an Easter egg hunt with guns and death. They also have a scrimmage mode, which honestly, I didn't play this one, so I'm not sure how this differs from TDM. It seems like it's probably similar. Maybe they just don't keep score or something. I don't know. But then they have another game mode that really caught my eye called Duel Master. And no, this isn't some Yu-Gi-Oh shit. It actually sounds really fun. So you start off with 8 players and they take turns basically 1v1ing. When you lose a duel, you lose a life. And that last person standing is the winner. And when I read that description, it kind of reminded me of like an old Mario Party minigame, but you probably have 2 or 3 lives or something if I had to take a guess. But it just seems like a really interesting game mode. And in this day and age where everybody's so quick to 1v1 me, you're trash, it seems like a must add for any other future FPS games. Then something else I noticed really quickly is this little guy right down here. Now, I don't want to throw shade, but having custom games while the game's still in beta is a W. And we can clearly see the importance of having custom games. But that's enough shade. Let's talk abilities. I'm not going to go over each one in detail. I'll just sort of scroll over them here and talk about them while you see them in the background. And there are some that are standouts, like there's basically a rocket launcher. It is underwhelming, which to be fair is good for balancing, but a lot of these abilities seem to repeat. There's a lot of abilities that is just a different animation and graphic, just a different tool or whatever it looks like is different, but it all does the same thing. You throw it down, it has an area of effect, and it deals damage over time to those in that area. There's like 4 or 5 of these types of abilities, and then there's like 2 or 3 abilities that are just a wall. You just put down a wall. Some walls are stationary, some walls are taller than others, some walls are just a visual graphic that move like a smoke screen, but it's just a wall. Speaking of walls, there's a lot of better abilities and unique abilities like Zephyr, who is somebody that I would probably play if I played this game, that are locked behind a play wall. Not a pay wall, but you get in-game currency by playing the game and you use that to unlock them, which isn't terrible, just sort of annoying. Then you'll notice that some characters have passive abilities and others just don't, which seems unfair. But one of the character's passives is just allowing you to slide when you're running and press the crouch button, which in just about every other FPS game, everybody can do, but not in this game because it's somebody's passive. And that was one of the first things I tried to do in the tutorial and failed miserably and just thought you couldn't do that in this game. But I guess it's not as bad as Valorant, where you can't even sprint because someone's passive is being able to sprint. Now that's truly the dumbest thing I've ever heard. The last time I haven't been able to sprint in a video game that was an FPS was like Halo 2. Now me personally, I'm very selective with the games I play, but when I do pick one up that I do enjoy, I put my all into it. And usually I only keep about 3 to 5 games in rotation at all times. Currently that's filled with XDefiant, Siege, and Apex. So there is room to add a couple more, but realistically, this is just another Valorant. And also, I can't wait for people to start calling this a Valorant killer. It's just going to be hilarious. But seriously, it's the same premise, and just trying to set yourself apart from games like Valorant is going to be hard. And I didn't think they could make a more cartoony version of Counter-Strike after I saw Valorant, but boy, was I wrong. I also don't get the craze for all these games just taking the word punk and throwing something else in front of it to help market the game. Some examples: Cyberpunk, Frostpunk, and now FragPunk. I'm sure I'm missing a few, but like, come on, what's next? Beat punk?
Hi, how are you?
Oh, I know I'll probably get a lot of hate for this take, but I'm just going to say it. This game is better than Valorant. Valorant's movement feels very clunky, just not good. Not to mention, the aim bloom in Valorant is stupid. It's just as bad, if not worse, than Fortnite. I haven't played this game long enough to identify really where cheating would come into play or if anybody was cheating that I played against, but cheaters exist in every game. And I did see this one guy running around dual wielding weapons. Not sure if that's something you can even do. I didn't see any abilities or anything like that that allow you to do that. So who knows? Maybe he was cheating, maybe not. I have no clue. People applaud Valorant's anti-cheat for banning tons and tons of cheaters rather quickly. And I think I remember reading something about there being like a cheater ban every minute or something. But on the flip side to that, it gets a lot of access to your system that some people don't like. But that's the price you pay for getting a game where you have a low number of cheaters. FragPunk uses something called FanDuel Anti-Cheat, which I've heard is just a rebrand of NEAC, which also never heard of either of these. And my research on both turned up limited results, so I'm not really sure how good it is at detecting cheaters, or if it's similar to Valorant's anti-cheat with being overly invasive. I hope it's good because it does look like a fun game, and all biases aside, I have to give FragPunk like a 7 out of 10. Keeping in mind that it is still in beta, and I had limited playtime, so that number could change. But I just don't see myself playing this. It's just not my cup of tea. Bomb game modes are fun, but when it becomes the core focus of games, I feel like it just takes away from my experience because it's not the type of game that I want to play. Rainbow Six Siege is a huge exception to that rule, but it's also very, very different in the way that it plays out. So I'll be sticking to my XDefiant content, which, by the way, I'll be live today, Saturday, October 12th, starting around 4 p.m. Eastern time on both Twitch and right here on YouTube with some more XDefiant. So make sure to swing by and hang out, and maybe we'll even get to try the 1v6 TDM again. If you enjoy this sort of content where I do honest reviews on other games, make sure to hit that like button, consider subscribing, and let me know down in the comments your thoughts on FragPunk and if you're going to be playing it. And I'll catch you in the next upload.